There we go. Wonderful. We got a dozen or so folks. A few new people to our group, and so I wonder, James and Brett and Mary, Paul as well. If you guys just want to kind of introduce yourselves, we can welcome you to our community. James, we'll start with you.
Yeah, James Walker. I live in Santa Fe. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2015. I'm a Vietnam vet um, and exposed to Agent Orange. And so that's my story. But it's it's slow progressing. Um, the thing that really got to me was is I've run 5 marathons and done triathlons, and so about 2015, I couldn't even run a mile then, and still struggling with that. I'm also a member of the Punching Out Parkinson's group,
Great.
which is where I heard about the gloves, and I just got my gloves Wednesday, and I've been able to for 2 days. There you go.
Yes.
Thanks, James. Welcome. Um, Brett, how about you? Can you introduce yourself? I think there we
Yes,
go.
hello. Uh, my name is Brett Logan. The reason I'm here is that my one of my in-laws, Norm, he is in the synergic study, uh, and he has a set of gloves that they created, apparently identical to the ones that were supposed to be made with the original protocol. He's been
Hmm.
using them for uh, 4 months, and we've been going back and forth to Oregon. Um, but the study just ended, and now he's using it as he wishes. He's been now that he's off placebo, we know that for sure it's the real deal.
Hmm.
He's been using it for around 45 minutes, and we just got off, so we don't know really what's going to be most beneficial for him. But he's definitely noticing that shorter spans are better for him.
Hmm.
And he did have a strangely their protocol. The placebo was a very light touch stimulation, and he had a dramatic effect in the beginning with that. I mean, substantial. I'd love to send you a video. He went from shuffling lightly. He was really locked in. Wasn't able to move his arms significantly. And this guy was previously a martial arts
Uh-huh.
competitive in martial arts for a long period of time. So within the first week, he was doing Tai Chi, moving around quite a bit, and this was with the very light stimulation. So it's interesting. Pardon me?
The sham, they call it the sham.
Well, they called
Yeah.
it the sham
Mhm.
protocol, but apparently a subset of people had a pretty substantial reaction to it, and had so it was interesting to see how he had quite a breakthrough in the beginning, and then it sort of faded off very quickly, and within a couple of weeks. And then he went on the regular protocol, didn't seem to make much of a difference, but we had some other confounding factors. So we're just starting now to get our sea legs and figure out what really works for him.
Gotcha. And he's able to keep the glove from the trial?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
he gets to keep it until everything has been completed. We don't know how long that'll be, but
Mhm.
they continue to collect data. We're hoping for years, and if that's the case, we I believe we bought another set from from I believe you, Dr. Cox.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So yeah, so we have those available and we can use them, but we're going to stick with the ones
Sure.
that are in the study for now.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm here just because I'm interested in potentially being able to make some myself, even though obviously there are plenty of places that are far along at this point.
We have a
So,
lot of friends who, watching my dad, are
but
interested.
yeah, my wife is she's a physician. She's chiming in from the background. We have obviously there's a great deal of people that have a great interest in getting some gloves. So that's I'm just here to kind of kibitz and listen and see if I can glean enough information to be able to do something myself.
Cool. Cool. Welcome, Brett. It's great to have you. Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Um, and Mary, I'm not sure we've met in this forum before. Can you introduce
We
yourself?
haven't. Yes, this is my first time attending this forum and appreciate your holding it. I live on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I was diagnosed last year at the age of 54. So I had symptoms since 2022, so a couple of years prior to that. I retired from my community college teaching job, so now I have more time
Hmm.
to pursue exercise and therapies and alternatives such as the gloves. So I've been wearing the gloves pretty faithfully for the past couple of weeks for about 2 hours in the evening.
Hmm. And do you have any kind of results to report? I mean, positive or negative?
Hard to tell. I'm doing a lot of things, and
I
I
see.
don't know if the group has some thoughts about that. You know, you have your supplement stack, you have exercises, you have therapies. You don't know what's affecting.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Yeah.
better off changing one thing at a time, but
Mhm.
we're kind of throwing everything against the wall.
I
But I
understand that.
figure, it can't hurt. But if anybody has any ideas on how to track symptoms or determine whether you're seeing improvement, I'm all ears.
Yeah. So we are working on we have an app out that kind of a companion to the glove. Right now, it's only out for Android, and we're currently migrating it, and that has a symptom tracker, as well as a voice tracker, and a gait tracker. So, and it can all be done, in the privacy of your own home. Um, Ideally, then we would be able to kind of assess that data and give recommendations for how to change the settings on the glove.
Oh, that's great. That
So
sounds wonderful. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you just for everything you're doing.
Uh,
It's terrific. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. And Paula, can you introduce yourself as well? Oh, you're still muted on.
Hmm.
There you
Okay.
go.
Yeah, I was at the last meeting. I'm just here to gather information. It's my husband who's the Parkinson's patient, um, over age 80 and no tremor. So I'm interested if this works for the akinetic rigid type of Parkinson's rather than controlling tremor.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, welcome back. Thank you. Um, so I think we've
You
covered
need to
the
lie down. Stop.
I think we've covered the new folks that are here. So I welcome Julie and Lauren and Chuck and David and Minna and Ken Toronto back. Um, so let me share with you the agenda for today. Um, Maybe not quite that one yet. Let me there we go. Um, so just on the maybe, well, whimsical slash important, I mean, as we apply for more funding and interns and like people need our logo. So I was very fortunate a couple weeks ago to work with Alicia's sister Amelia, and she and I kind of designed this Espanola GloveWorks logo. Can kind of
That's
um,
great.
two holding hands and a heart. There's an implied glove in this handshake, but it need not be explicit. Um, so I thank you to Alicia and Amelia for that work. So just we've had a welcome to the new faces, the agenda. Alicia has set up a Facebook group, an Instagram group, which I want to talk about. Um, Chuck and I are the sole inhabitants so far of a kind of a tech design discussion page, which I want to talk about. And then I want to hear more about update from users about issues. Can talk a little bit about some upgrades or some repairs that are going underway. Um, and then that should leave us a few minutes to kind of continue our our scientific dive into how is dopamine regulated. We've talked a lot about in the past, you know, our past videos, our past sessions about kind of the large scale networks of the brain, um, how information gets from the fingertips to cortex, and how it gets from cortex back to muscle, and how that's kind of more or less degraded with the lack of dopamine cells. But we haven't really taken a deep dive into how dopamine is released and how it's processed and how it's reuptake so it can be redelivered and repackaged. Um, so it's the nature of the agenda, and this is meant to be a shared forum for folks, and so I look forward to other subjects to talk about, other scientific papers. I've received lots of input on other ideas to talk about. Those can happen now, or they can happen, offline through email. Um, but absent kind of any feedback right now, we can just kind of talk into, and I hope this is big enough for you guys to see on your screens. Excuse me. Haven't done much talking yet this morning, just coffee. Um, and so there's lots of reasons to have discussion platforms. We meet here, and we're a small group of, maybe 10 or 15, and there are 125 gloves out in the wild right now, more or less. And so there are people that aren't able to join us, people on other continents. Um, and also, I think it's best to have a discussion channel where it can be open discussion. People could kind of chime in without actually, logging into a Zoom session, which even that can be, a constraint for a number of folks, um, without without kind of Zoom credentials and the like. Um, and so it's natural to try to create, discussion groups. It's not really clear these days. Um, Maybe you guys also suffer from platform fatigue. I mean, how many things can you belong to? But nonetheless, the two kind of most heavily used are Facebook groups and Instagram groups. And so Alicia has created these. They will be private. You cannot join without requesting access. And then Alicia and I will grant access to folks with the gloves, but it's meant to just be people wearing the gloves to have a chance um, to discuss, right, what kind of strategies, what's working best for them, and to better kind of support each other. And ideally, that also plays for kind of caregivers to understand, um, the ins and outs of the gloves. Literally, how to get in and out of the gloves is the first issue. And so I'm hoping that you guys, so if you have a Facebook account, you can just search for Espanola GloveWorks under groups and request permission to join. If you don't have an account, you can create a free one. And the same with Instagram. If you have an Instagram account, you can just search for Espanola GloveWorks and and request permission to join. And then ideally, Alicia, who's here, will get will get a ping. And and let you join in, right? And then it's more or less you can follow discussions or you can initiate discussions. Um, Alicia, do you want to say something in addition, or do maybe put a face on the page?
Hello. I would show my face, but I look like a mess right now.
Oh,
But I could send out. I could put a link in the chat too for both the Instagram and the Facebook, so it might be a little bit easier to find because
yes.
sometimes Facebook will be a little weird and won't show certain things when you type it in. But yeah, I'll put in a link here now in a few.
Okay. We'll be watching for it. Yeah. Alicia did join me a week or so ago when we were a guest at the Punching Up Parkinson's, kind of gymnasium support group in Santa Fe, and we got to meet a number of folks, quite a few already with the glove, but others that were glove curious. Okay, so that's the Facebook, Instagram stuff. There's also a GitHub page. Um, yeah, so I just want to, I might as well just go there. Um, So there's a GitHub page, which is ideally meant to be kind of a repository for to help other makers. And Brett, this maybe especially speaks to you if you're interested in making gloves yourselves. So STL files for how to 3D print the finger pads, the glove box and box top, printed circuit board files for the printed circuit board, patterns for the glove fabric, um, code for the brain that's inside the watch, and then also code for the app that can monitor your gait, monitor voice, yada yada yada. Um, and it's largely being run by these kind of contributors. But we do have a discussion page, and during that discussion page, um, you can actually create a new discussion or chime in on some improvements you wish to be made in other facets. Um, and so there'll be something new here coming up. I think Lauren, you suggested it might be nice to have some type of low battery indicator to really understand when things need to get charged. And um,
Yes, that would
I've
be helpful.
I've added a low battery indicator to the circuit board, and I think our next generation of circuit boards will have at least kind of a warning LED saying low battery. Um, Having a display screen with numbers is more complicated, but we can. And we don't have to get into that right now for folks, but this is a place for kind of tech improvements where Facebook and Instagram are a place for kind of user or caregiver discussions. Um, and I know some things can leak into either place. So I hope to be able to respond, to discussions in all those forums, um, in somewhat reasonable fashion. Um, Cool. Yeah. So it would be great, Alicia, if we could post that thing and if people could actually check it and confirm, right? Because I think the last link you sent me, Alicia, it just kind of stuck me at my own page and didn't really pull me into GloveWorks. So it'd be great if we could have a couple guinea pigs right here to test our workflow. Does that make sense, Alicia? So I'll look forward to seeing that in the chat. Is there something already there? Um,
What was that? I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I guess so. I see the Facebook link and the Instagram link in the chat, friends. So if anybody is willing to kind of give that a try, right, and make sure that it's working for you and to give us some feedback. Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Oop, sorry about that. Let me. Um, yeah, I think I can get that out of the way. Um, So that's kind of the new business. I just wanted to make sure that people see, that we have um, this GitHub page. We've got now Facebook and Instagram coming online. There's also, yeah, I mean, something else, especially maybe for new folks, just to kind of repeat what we've got. So from our webpage, Espanola GloveWorks .org, there's a playlist um, of a
Hey,
couple of.
Steve.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
Yes.
Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm back at the Facebook thing. I clicked on that link that she gave us.
Hmm.
It said request. I forget what it said, but now it says cancel request. Am I joined up? I don't know how this stuff works.
Gotcha. Um,
Sorry
yeah.
to back up.
No. That's good. That's what I want. Thank you, Jim.
You said you wanted a guinea pig, so I'll be a guinea pig.
Good.
I need
And
to
I
accept
don't know how
the
any of this
request.
stuff works.
Yeah.
I have the same message, Jim.
So, Alicia, did you receive their requests?
Yeah, I'm looking on it now.
Okay.
Sorry to bring things to
No.
a halt.
No. This is
Okay.
it's good to get real-time feedback.
Okay, did you guys get in now?
Oh, now it says 4 members. I don't know if I'm in. What do I do?
Member.
About discussion.
Yeah, you should be in then.
Yeah, I'm in now.
Okay, so where do I click on to show me anything other than the picture of all you lovely people?
I haven't added anything to the group yet, so
Oh, there's nothing to see.
but can you guys like send messages?
I
Like,
don't
can you
know how
guys
to
write?
do that.
It
There's
says
a
write something.
View member requests, your content, share, manage notifications, pin group, report group, leave group. No, share. No, I don't want to do that. Discussion. Do I click on
Discussion.
discussion?
Yeah.
See, I don't know I've never used any of this. I don't know how this works. All right.
Yeah, but once you're in, you can just kind of, poke around. Just kind
I'll
of,
poke around.
it's
Okay,
good.
great.
You can,
Okay, we can move on. Thank you.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, no, no. I didn't mean to stop you, but you can hover and kind of see what's under places. And Alicia, maybe we can make a short how-to. So I'm showing you right now the video playlist, right? So there's
Yeah.
there's there's videos of these past sessions. There's videos of how to put on the glove. There's also videos of how to install the app and how to use the app. And so it wouldn't hurt to have kind of um, people that have not been belong to Facebook groups, just how to get in and out of a group, how to navigate, how to read messages, how to create messages.
Okay, yeah, I'll work on that. I can make a video for that.
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And I would just say, just as a general, if you want to message the moderators of the group, you just hit message. But then if you wanted to post to the whole group so that everyone that's a member could see and respond, you could you could actually make a post as opposed to the message. The message would just probably go to Alicia and Steve, the moderators.
Yeah.
Message. Where's message?
It should be,
Upper right.
yeah, it'll say message, and that'll just be a private to Alicia, I think. And then you should also be able to make a post. I'm imagining where you can, that we'll have to check in on, but that way that everyone that's in the group could see it, and then it can generate that conversation. And, if someone is new to the group, they can kind of scroll back through old posts and find out information that's already been shared.
Yeah, I'll do that now.
Thanks, Alicia. So we
Yeah,
might
sure.
we can kind of circle back in half an hour and maybe have a recap of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that will get included on this playlist. And so this just has, an app a walkthrough, right, of the app, how to install the app on your phone, how to install batteries, how to wear and change the gloves. In addition to the playlist that has, all of the previous forums, right, the past 18 or so that we've been working on. So I just want to help people see that's here on the front page. And again, any suggestions for how to be more informative or more open, I'm open to those suggestions.
What's one thing you want to knock off your bedroom bucket list?
My bedroom.
And so let me give you the screen back, and if we want to, the next part of the agenda, right, is just an update from kind of user experience. And then ideally, right, if these discussions get long, and detailed, and then it's probably quite important that we share this with other people that aren't actually here. They can watch the video, but they can't actually kind of contribute. And again, that's the reason for the Facebook and Instagram pages. So. So ideas, concerns.
Steve, I have read Ending Parkinson's Disease, which you recommended.
Yeah.
I also just got the Parkinson's Plan, which I just started reading last night.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also discovered a treasure trove online of Parkinson's podcasts and whatnot. This guy, Beach Band, have you heard of this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This guy a scam or is this for real? Because he said he was low on his medications, which I'm newly diagnosed and I'm wading into this. It's a fire hose of information. Um, but was low on his medications during this podcast, and he had this little watch type
Hmm.
thing. It was, I
Yeah.
guess, a tactile vibrating thing, and he would turn it off, and his speech would become very slow. And he'd
Uh,
flip the switch, and he turned right back to. Is that for real?
that's I haven't seen that. That does sound pretty
It was dramatic. It was as
dramatic.
dramatic
That's a
as
good word for it.
Omar
Yes.
getting up and walking after 2 hours of wearing the gloves.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, one of our participants on the glove, Patrick Rodriguez, I've met in Santa Fe. Jan, he's part of Punching Out Parkinson's. He's got a beach band. You know, it's a very different beast. So it's playing a fairly large but completely periodic stimulus just into the wrist. So it's vibrating the wrist with something. It feels to me a stronger stimulus than an individual finger.
Right.
Um,
He talked about tapping.
yeah, yeah, it's very rhythmic. It seems to me like I mean, it's doing something very different than the glove. And
Now,
but people, there's not been enough clinical trials of the glove. There's been no clinical trials of the beach band.
right, right.
So
Now,
it's purely anecdotal. It's only recently become available in the States. I'm not sure. Anybody else in our Zoom session today have a beach band? Lauren?
Carl Beach, he's from Australia.
Uh-huh.
I
He's
don't have a beach band, but I belong to a support group, a ladies support group in Phoenix, and one of the members had a beach band, and she said that she was getting some benefit from it with her tremor. But we didn't go into it in any great detail because it was sort of at the end of the meeting, and but I'm looking forward to talking to her about it more next week when we get back together again.
well,
I know someone who has one, and she said she didn't feel that it did anything for her except increase her anxiety level, but she loaned it to a friend whose husband put it on and could immediately walk much better. So it was two very different responses to the same beach band.
right. I have a pair of gloves that I've been wearing for 2 hours a day, twice a day, as best I can. I'm not perfect with it. It's quite a commitment, 4 hours a day. And my symptoms are not improved, but I don't know if we're staving off my symptoms or what's going on. Also, it's reminding me that a friend of mine years ago talked about, and I continue to get emails from this guy almost seemingly daily, Nick Ortner, the tapping solution, where they tap what area of the body you want to fix. And I always just thought that was a bunch of hooey, so I never really paid any attention to it. But this rhythmic tapping and the vibration, the tactile sensation gloves, this is all something's going on that works.
Mhm.
And how can we figure out what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, so ideally or naively, that's the path of the app, right? Is to
We're
basically,
on to something.
yeah, yeah. But to Paula's point, your point, right, that it can be the same device having dramatically different effects on folks. And so
Right.
so to my mind, that just means, yeah, that there's something out there, but it needs to be tuned to the individual. And so how big that sweet spot is, how we actually navigate the stimulus into that spot. And talking to Patrick about his beach band, he largely said that it's almost in some sense the opposite effect of the glove. It helps. So where the glove is a random stimulus, the kind of the regular stimulus of the beach band helps to keep him in step, right? And so oftentimes with the stiffness of gait or freezing of gait, you need some type of trigger, right, to kind of take you out of that bad pathway and over into the next step. And something regular like a metronome, can be that alternative pathway. Again, that's pretty vague, right? That's really, but to me, that's a salient, kind of explanation. So
You're onto something.
there are devices like NextStride. Have we talked about NextStride, or does anybody here have one of these? Um, so it's a cane that has a metronome on it, playing a regular beat to kind of help with motion. And it also has a laser that shows you kind of a green line about one step in front of you. So it's just meant to use auditory and visual pathways to kind of break out of bad loops in the basal ganglia. And so it's a distraction, but it's a distraction that works to give a Parkinsonian patient kind of the next stride, both visually and auditorily. And to my mind, that's something like what the beach band is up to. Um, I have not seen any kind of putative explanations for how the beach band works.
I think I remember seeing an interview with Carl Beach, and he talked about how the beach band can help your nervous system become more well regulated.
Mhm.
And Jim, when you're talking about the regular tapping, I don't know if you've heard of the emotional freedom technique, but that's a method where you tap different parts of your body, and it's supposed to help you regulate your nervous system.
That sounds like Nick Ortner, the tapping solution.
Yeah, exactly. So it's called emotional freedom technique. If
Huh.
you're interested in looking that up, but it's where you tap the different parts of your body.
Wow.
So I wonder if the beach band is more like that,
That's what it sounds like.
you know,
But this vibratory tactile tapping, something's going on here that we need to zero in on, I'm all about figuring this one out. And I
yeah.
don't know how to go about it.
Well, I think it ties into the idea that, at least with myself, when I'm more stressed, my symptoms are more visible. I'm more aware of my symptoms. When I can relax, they tend to diminish.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
That's the problem with the vibro-tactile projects. Nobody takes them seriously because they're not consistent.
Right.
And in fact, the biggest one, the largest base of customers is the Q, which is a product made in the UK. And I just was reading about that, and they're applying for some type of health regulation, and they paused making it. Which, if it was really great, why got them to pause making it? So that's on hold right now. And then Peter Tass doesn't do us any favors because he just sort of dropped everything. So I struggle with the fact that vibrotectal doesn't get a fair shake from anybody. Well, I shouldn't say anybody, but most people think it's not viable.
Right. Hmm.
And it is a challenge to find out something that works consistently. That's that's what we're here for.
That would be wonderful if we could figure out a way to make it work consistently,
Yeah,
even if it's just on one symptom,
yeah.
smell.
Clearly,
Sleep. Yeah.
more research is needed. I remember reading somewhere about the gloves, whether it was Espanola GloveWorks or some related thing I clicked on because I'm just a monkey punching buttons. Um, I remember reading that a neurologist could tune the vibrotactile gloves to accommodate the particular symptoms of a particular patient. And I don't know where I read that, but it was very early on when I first met Dr. Cox and uh, got involved in this.
Yeah, yeah. So that's maybe I'm guilty of that. It's there on our tech doc as an aspiration, right? And so that's,
No, this was somebody said a
but it's not
neurologist could,
done.
in a 15-minute session, adjust the gloves to accommodate. And maybe I got that wrong. Was that just an aspiration?
As far as the glove goes, as far as I understand, it's an aspiration for deep brain stimulation. Medtronics does have an adaptive, procedure where they could be taking measurements deep down in basal ganglia and tune the response
Uh,
to what they're measuring.
okay, yeah, I'm
Um,
not a candidate for deep brain stimulation at this point.
yeah,
I asked them and they
yeah.
say no, you're not.
So
So,
to my knowledge, nobody knows how to tune the gloves.
oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Must have misread that.
That's that's an aspiration, and for that we need to collect a whole lot more data. And these are early days. Um, I am. I have made progress on starting kind of two clinical trials, one in New Mexico and one in Texas. Um, but I'm learning about the regulatory procedures and what that takes.
Right.
So that's not fast. Um, what can be fast, Jim, is that you donated an electroencephalogram, 16 electrode cap
Oh, the
and
hairnet.
the hairnet, and my research student is completely
How's Nick
obsessed.
doing with that?
He's obsessed. He's doing really, really good work. And we found
Hey,
some,
good
yeah,
man.
yeah. So the key, the question there is, right, can we detect, the vibratory stimulus? Can we see the impact of that in the brain? So,
Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. I
yeah.
got it.
As opposed to just seeing kind of, anecdotally, does it affect somebody's, gait or voice or sleep or sense of smell? Um, that's which is a very indirect but super super important. Can it address symptoms? You guys need to know that. But we also need to address Paul's issue about the beach band. Why is it dramatic for some folks and not for others? The same with the gloves. Some people respond, within a week, and others, it's kind of questionable whether that's having any effect upon them. So, um,
Maybe I'll communicate with AI, Mr. AI, and see if I can get some answers.
Jim, did your doctor have you get an EEG? Is that how that happened?
Actually, my PCP, I lost my sense of taste and smell 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, after I had COVID, or so I thought it was from having COVID, because a few weeks after I had COVID in August of 2021, I noticed that I had no sense of taste and smell, and I thought it was from the COVID. Well, fast forward 4.5 years, 3 years, 3.5 years. I was tired of not being able to smell or taste anything. So I went to my doctor and said, "What can we do?" And she sent me to a neurologist in northern New York State. He had me get an MRI of my brain, and he said, "There's nothing there. I can't help you." Laugh out loud. Um, but at that time, I noticed that my index finger had started this little twitch. And I asked him about that at the time. He said it's probably just you're tired or nervous. We dismissed it. Well, fast forward 6 months. Now my whole right hand is doing the jitterbug, and I still have no sense of taste and smell. So I went to my doctor. She took a whole bunch of blood tests. I mean, a ton of blood to rule out all of the bad things and referred me to the same neurologist again. I went and saw him. He recommended a DAT scan, which is akin to an MRI, except they don't put you in the tube. There's these two bread boxes or suitcases that rotated around my head. Oh, they shot me up with nuclear contrast, and I had to wait a few hours. And then they did the scan, and he said that yes, my dopamine receptors or whatever are out of balance. And he had me walk up and down the hall, and he said, "Yes, you have early stages of Parkinson's disease. When the symptoms get bad enough, call me and I'll write you a prescription for some medication. Have a nice day." So that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm questioning. I'm trying to gather as much information as I can, and it's like a fire hose, and I have to put it aside sometimes.
yeah.
Um, how bad does my medicate? How much? How when do I need medication? I When I took the genetic test, the saliva test that they have you do to see if you have any of the either of the two variants in your genes. They were interested. I read that they were interested in people who were in early stages. Oh, that's me. Who had not yet started medication. Oh, that's me. So I sent that in. And it turns out I do not have either of the two genetic variants. Okay, well, that's good news to have. So it's environmental, and I can point to my life I've been exposed to all kinds of stuff. Um, but so now, fast forward, I've called my neurologist and gotten them to refer me to a doctor in Rochester, which is where Dr. Ray Dorsey was working. I think he's in New York now, but I'm not sure. But anyway, I was skiing yesterday, or day before yesterday, and they called, and I was on the slope, so I let the voicemail pick up, and now I'm trying to call them back, and Verizon can't connect the number. So Monday I'll get on the phone and find them and make an appointment. I'm out in California, and I'm hoping for an appointment sometime in May
Yeah.
when I return to
Yeah.
North.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I mean, it's it. I think we're all inundated, by the amount of information out there. I mean, even like the paper we're reading today, I want to move to.
Okay.
It's got 500 references, right? And it's just in one kind of narrow part of the subject. But I remain kind of like Ken Toronto, kind of frustrated that, or maybe doubly frustrated, right? There's that how little research there is on vibrotactile stimulus, and that's compounded by the fact of how ready and how easy the technology is to work with and to grasp, right? And so, I mean, Ken's built one of his own. I've now built 100 or so with novice students. The Rice group is kind of also started from a high school project that Ken Heitkamp's now working with. Um, and so,
That's why I was wondering, I asked about the EEG. Is that something that we could order up ourselves and then contribute it to a
gotcha.
study?
Yeah,
As the price of tests is coming way down,
yeah,
and maybe
yeah,
patient-driven research will be the way to go.
yeah. That's a great question, Mary. So I think I think I might open up a discussion on that on our GitHub page, right? So that Nick, my research student, can share results about the EEG stuff that we're working on. Um,
Okay.
so that the yeah,
Class does show a brain scan and
yeah,
how it changes after use with the glove.
he does. He does. Yeah, yep. And so that's kind of one scan on one patient, right? So we're trying to
Yeah.
we'll do something better than that, I think, Mary, this semester, right? And if we find something that's like, reproducible, we're working on a wireless EMG sensor, which will be under $100. The current EEG, kind of, skull caps, those are $5,000. And so that's a pretty heavy investment for individuals. It's also not that easy to process the data, so that it takes. I mean, what all neurologists have one of these workstations, right? And they're trained on how to do it. Um, and so that's. I guess I'd like to park that for future discussions, but it would be. Yeah, I'm curious to see whether the 16 electrodes we have gives sufficient coverage of motor cortex to really distinguish the impact of the glove. Um, and then there we can literally be, turning the knobs on the glove and seeing what shows up in the EEG, seeing what shows up transiently, like, at the moment, but it also, for me, one of the major word in TAS's study is cumulative benefit, right? So that's, again, I mean, what we want is consistent benefit, that everybody gets it, but that also that it's not just a one-off, right? It's not just, like feel good for a week and then return to normal or worse. Uh,
Steve,
Yes,
one
Ken.
thing was discussed when I was down in the Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I go to a Parkinson's support group down there, and they had a company, and I forget the name of the company, that was talking about the latest version of their deep brain stimulation.
Uh-huh.
But they were planning on with one of the patients that had the glove is while they're trying to place electrodes is turn the glove on and see what they can read while the gentleman's got his brain open.
Wow.
So
Whoa.
when I get
Yeah.
back down there, I'm going to see if they've done that study yet.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
And one thing I'm doing because I stopped using your glove because I'm in the test for rice and now I
Mhm.
want to get a stable baseline.
Sure.
So I'm trying to figure out how long my on and off periods are.
Hmm.
So I do sit to stand for chairs and I can do 18 and 30 seconds when I'm really good. So I take my medication and then I read like every 30 minutes how that peters off. And I'm
Yeah.
good for like about 3.5, 4 hours before it really starts tailing. And at the end, I'm down to like about 6. So I
Gotcha.
go from 18 to 6. So then once I get started with the gloves, I want to see if that changes the length of on time.
So
Gotcha.
Ken, is this a relationship then you say between the sit and stand exercise and the what is the manifestation you have? Do you have tremor?
just the ability to do the task. And
to do the task.
what I find is this is interesting. During the day, if I go like say 5 hours, I'm down to like about six. But I can go 7 hours when I go to bed at night and get up in the morning, and I can probably do like 14. So it almost seems like physical activity burns up the dopamine faster than when I'm just sleeping.
It absolutely does. Jimmy Choi proved that.
Oh, good. Because
Choi actually titrates the amount of dopamine he uses depending upon his exertion. You haven't seen that video. That's pretty cool. Oh, you can't because they didn't. The company that sponsors him didn't allow it to be videotaped.
uh,
But he's that ninja. He's a Parkinson's guy with Ninja on American Ninja, and he's incredibly fit. And he basically adjusts the dopamine to what his exertion levels are going to be.
that makes sense. Because that's what I'm seeing in my graph. At my dose 5, it skews the results at that time period. But doses 1 through 4, which are during the day, 5 is taken like 10 o'clock at night. So I take it at 10 o'clock at night, at 5 in the morning, I can still do like 14 sit to stands. But if that at the time during the day, I'm down to like 6 or 8.
And there's a lot here, that's for darn sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear someone else has that experience.
Steve, how could we collect this information like from Ken and Ken Toronto and Ken Heidkamp, and perhaps others, and try to have an opportunity to review this information so that we can pursue further interests and things?
Right. Yeah.
I'll post what I've done. I mean, it's just pick a task that you can repeat, and I do two 30-second reads at like the 30 minutes, 60 minutes, etc. Because I'm just trying to find out one, what my on-off periods are, how it trends, and then if using the glove improves it.
Well, what you're trying to do, which I think is the challenge, is to find some quantitative measure that you can use. Smell isn't quantitative. There's so few things, and the finger tap is also another one that I've tried to use for a quantitative measure.
Yeah. Yeah. But through the app as well, I mean, we can score your gait and we can score your voice, and so those are also two things that we can use. And so we just have to start doing that. But yeah, but Ken H, if you could start a post on Facebook about how to the sit stand, and whether kind of before and after, before the glove and then after the glove.
Will do.
Yeah, I think so. We're all struggling to, especially as scientists, right, to have something that we can hold on to and reproduce.
You know that if I take my full medication and then use the glove, I get dyskinesia.
Yeah.
It's functioning like medicine.
Yeah, I think that's also an important observation, right? And I'd like for other folks to see that, Ken. So if you could also post such things to Facebook, and we can try to somehow organize and distill and I don't know, perhaps Alicia and I could, or Margaret, for example, with our nursing students. We've added one more nursing student on Friday, Margaret. I want to talk to you about, but we can do that offline. So to write up some type of a survey each week, or a summary, sorry, of each week, to kind of, and that can go out with the agenda for the next Zoom session, kind of just a high level summary of what got discussed on the Facebook and Instagram pages in the past week. Again, just for private members, it would only go out to you guys.
That would be really helpful.
Okay.
That's why I befriended Conor Botani, because he's the only man in the world that's used these gloves for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
8 years.
Mm-hmm. No, that's powerful testimony. Yeah. And he's, yeah. So back to Ken's point as well or Ken H, about, kind of DBS. So I am, again, it's aspirational, but I've begun discussion of IRBs and clinical trials with a neurosurgeon at University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. He's a colleague of mine from my Rice days. We wrote papers together. And he's moved now from kind of epilepsy surgery, resection of tissue to doing DBS. And so his father's got Parkinson's. His father's wearing the glove, but he's interested in having glove patients observing the glove while the electrodes are down in basal ganglia. Again, can we see transient as well as cumulative effects in the places where we know that cells have been degraded by Parkinson's?
Connor just had DBS.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
To complicate matters.
But yet but it's not a silver bullet, and right, in the sense of that he's still taking levodopa, still using the gloves on occasion, and again is a strong advocate for exercise and diet. Um, so
Yep.
so many moving parts, right? And so and again, my metaphor is this sweet spot, right? So how finely tuned do we have to make the exercise, the diet, the glove, the drug regime before people get some benefit? And can the benefit sustain even while more and more cells are being lost to Parkinson's? That's the challenge. Um, our science paper today speaks a little bit to that. So I hate to curtail this discussion, but I want to kind of keep our head at least in one scientific theme, every couple of weeks. So I'm gonna steal the screen back, and maybe we can come on just before we close. Again, I know it's 10:53. I'll take 10 minutes to kind of share the highlights. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. So we began last time to try to better understand how dopamine is released and then recycled for the next release. And we saw a couple of action-packed videos on how synaptic vesicles could dock and then fuse and dump their contents out into open space to be picked up by other cells. And the contents here are dopamine. DA is the abbreviation for dopamine. And this is just meant to be kind of an enlargement along the axon of a dopamine cell in your striatum, the input structure to your basal ganglia. So you've got tens of thousands of these cells. Each one of them has like a million of these synapses, for lack of a better word. And so we saw a video of how a synaptic vesicle fuses and then dumps its dopamine contents out into the world. And these can be measured by kind of amperometry. These are charged particles. And we see that during full fusion, there is an increase in current here over time that sees the dopamine being released from an individual synapse. This is done in a dish of dopamine cells that have been grown in culture. But in addition to this kind of full fusion of kind of a single event, there's also this notion of kind of kiss and run, where sometimes the vesicle fuses, a small thing gets dumped, it kind of retracts and kind of comes back. This kind of kiss and run behavior, giving these kind of complex events. And the brain seems to be doing this about 80% of the time, and the complex events about 20% of the time. And they have a very different effect on kind of how much dopamine gets dumped out into the cleft, and then how fast it might be to kind of do the recycling. So this is the fusion event. And then once dopamine gets out there in the world, well, then there are kind of two pathways for how to get it back into vesicles. Yeah, and I should also say that these events, whether it's simple or complex, this happens about 4 times a second forever during life. It's called like a tonic stimulation. So it's just tonic means regular, periodic. This is happening 4 times a second without any stimulus. So it's just kind of a pacemaker bathing your basal ganglia in dopamine. And so, in addition, there are stimulation events, where things can burst at a much higher frequency transiently, depending upon activity, what the brain's up to. So that's a lot of dopamine that it needs to be producing. Because again, there are about 1 million of these synapses per cell. Each one of them is going through this process 4 times a second. And that's in the absence of any kind of interesting activity or reward signals or the like. So the next part of the paper talks about, how how dopamine gets packed into these vesicles. And so one process, one stage of that is just the synthesis of dopamine from levodopa, and that happens right here, right there at the source. There is a dopamine factory. So either synthesizing dopamine or bringing dopamine in from the outside. So after dopamine is dumped into the cleft, it's not picked up by other cells. It's just used as a key that starts a process on the neighboring cells. Those other cells do not pick up dopamine. They leave it out in the cleft. And again, just to make the picture not so complicated, the cleft can be kind of any place outside the cell. And so DAT is the dopamine transporter. So this is a place that actually allows, it's a pore, a window, a channel that transports dopamine from the outside to the inside. And once dopamine's on the inside, it can then be packed up into these vesicles for release and recycling. And I think a number of our participants have even had DAT scans. So this DAT transporter, it can be imaged a radioactive dye can be injected into the body that's only picked up by these particular kind of membrane proteins, and we can use kind of the picture of that in your brain to diagnose Parkinsonian. Well, really diagnose anything that needs dopamine, right? Parkinson's being the relevant one for us today. DAT is also another bizarre place in the sense that so you see here the arrow of dopamine being transported into the cell. The the joy that comes from drug use like methamphetamines is that it actually reverses the transport. This is a place where extra dopamine kind of gets dumped into the cleft. And then dopamine as a reward signal is then seen, as a high, or as something that speeds up metabolism, like amphetamines do. So this is a major player in understanding Parkinson's and drugs of addiction, and even making diagnoses on say early onset Parkinson's. Perhaps we can see a degradation in DAT even before you feel motor symptoms. And so I'm largely just trying to focus in on the picture and not take you through the text necessarily. So the idea that dopamine is being released and repackaged 4 times a second during normal procedure throughout your entire life, right? This is a metabolically expensive thing. And then the paper we're looking at says, well, how are things really regulated? How is this fusion or release regulated? How is the uptake regulated? And there's even kind of, and I'll finish with just one more picture. These are very crude diagrams, but crude is good, I think, sometimes for early readers, not to be inundated with some alphabet soup. And so this next picture below is a zoom in on one of these synaptic vesicles, right? And so dopamine gets released from the cell, dopamine gets brought back into the cell. How then does dopamine get packaged into these small vesicles, right? And so the important kind of operator for us is this VMAT2. So we're T for transport, right? So we are transporting dopamine, but we're transporting it into a synaptic vesicle. So we saw a video last time of endocytosis, how these vesicles are made, how these spheres are made, and then how are they packed, and what are they even packed with? And so for us, the major ingredient is dopamine. During Parkinson's, there is kind of a fantastic kind of reshuffling of a regulation. Um, and that's kind of what occurs in the second paper that I was sharing with you guys. So let me get back to that quickly. Um, and this also kind of even speaks to what Ken suggested, right? That too much drugs or too much glove or too much gloves and drugs leads to dyskinesia, um, involuntary movement, as opposed to lack of voluntary movement. And so what we can learn is that with some beautiful insights and kind of presynaptic effects of L-DOPA is is how the Parkinsonian brain does like a heroic job of adapting to the lack of dopamine. So it tweaks those processes I just showed you, the release and the uptake and the repackaging, um, to actually to help dopamine spend more time out in the cleft where it can talk to other cells, as opposed to so as the number of cells retract, their ability to talk to their neighbors increases. And the downside is this only this kind of has a this stops after a while, right? The impact of L-DOPA is kind of it's compromised after 5 years and is really compromised after 10 years. So again, I just want to share that kind of that insight with folks who want to go a little bit deeper to understand um, that while L-DOPA is a wonder drug, again, it's this no silver bullet business, and we can begin to understand how the brain adapts for that period, and then hopefully that leads to better treatments. So how is the glove implicated in that kind of adaptation? Is it helping dopamine spend more time outside the cell, even though overall you have less dopamine? So that's kind of the picture stuff that I wanted to kind of get across. Maybe with more time in coming weeks, we can take a slightly deeper dive into understanding the role of L-DOPA and how it's implicated in release and uptake and recycling of dopamine. Um, but it's already 11:04, so I wanted to circle back and see if Alicia, you've been able to admit folks into the park into the eGlove group,
Yeah,
and are there any is there a discussion occurring that people can see or join?
yeah, they could just create one themselves. It should be pretty. I don't know how it looks on a computer. I'll double check on that, but as soon as they're in, they're allowed to share photos, create chats or a discussion. As long as they're in, they should be able to get going with all that. But I did post one
Okay,
to kind of get it going.
gotcha. Um,
And I made Margaret moderator.
Oh,
uh,
okay.
Okay, I gave her moderator access.
Beautiful. Um, any feedback from the folks that are here? Has anyone been able to see that they're in and find a message or a discussion? Margaret, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, do you guys are you on a computer, Margaret? Would you like to share your screen so people could see what that looks like?
Sure. Let me.
Because I don't think I'm in yet. Alicia, did you approve me yet?
Did you send a request for the group?
Yeah,
For
I
the
did. I did. Yeah, yeah.
Let me check really quick.
But we can look at we can. I want to spread the love. So if Margaret's got something working,
Um, let me get back into it. Yeah, okay. So if you want to give me share.
yeah, yeah, you should be able to share, Margaret. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so once accepted, okay, so here's the group, and then so I'll accept moderator status. You should be able to, so only folks in the group will be able to see. And then if you wanted to make a post, if you wanted it to be anonymous, you could make it anonymous, right? But you could start a discussion here and anyone in the group then would be able to see it. And then if you, let me move you guys all down. If you wanted to, so now I see the message thing is gone, but let me see. Members, events. As you can invite other people that you know, maybe.
Yeah, I think the key thing is just that write something.
Yeah,
I think the key thing for us would largely just be up the messaging we can kind of do offline. The key thing is just
yeah,
to make a
just to be,
post. Yeah.
yeah,
And I
yes.
don't see you, Steve, in the group, but I think you followed the account, but you didn't join the group.
Who, me?
Steve.
Oh, okay.
It says your membership is pending. You'll be notified. Right.
Let me check really
It
quick. Hold
was
on.
a few days ago,
Ooh, I just saw me go by.
but we can work on that
You're
offline.
here.
I think.
You're here, Jim. Yes, we can just make a post and then anyone in the group will be able to see it.
Thanks, Margaret. And hopefully we can
Yeah.
hear from, from the two Kens today. You guys have a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and I think that
Yes.
it'd be great to share that beyond just our small Zoom family. Um,
Will do.
there's a lot of wisdom, period. I didn't mean to single out the two Kens, but I mean you guys are getting, getting pinged by the new folks on the channel. And so I like for them to have a permanent place to kind of follow you if that's not too much work. Um, so before signing off, is there anything you guys are dying to talk about 2 weeks from now? I was turned on to an amazing set of nature papers the past couple of years on SCAN and finding new targets for DBS. SCAN is a somatic cognitive action network. They seem to have found some gaps in motor cortex. It's not as simple as we thought, where right finger next to middle finger, next to ring finger, next to pinky. There's some there's something more interesting happening in motor cortex that has different connections to basal ganglia, and that's led to kind of new targets for where new targets for treatment. And again, how the glove fits into that, as we said, there's too little research on the glove, but it's a fascinating set of hypotheses. Um, So I'm quite interested in going there. So I may just finish up the dopamine discussion briefly next time and move into the scan network. Um,
Steve, are you able to stay on for a few minutes?
I am.
So some
Yeah. Yeah.
questions, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Um, yeah. I'll stay on as long as people want to talk. But as far as kind of the agenda part of today, um, you guys are free to go on with your Sundays, afternoon, morning. Where are we? Yeah, 11:10 already. So
We have a blizzard coming to Connecticut.
Oh,
gotcha,
no.
gotcha. So a good day to
So
prepare or stay
hopefully
inside.
2 weeks from now we'll be dug out.
Uh,
Take
well,
care.
good to see you, Ken. Thank you.
Bye.
You gotta take off as well, so see ya.
Okay. Bye, Ken. Take care.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye, Bernie. Bye, friends.
I respond.
Thank you so much. Fascinating.
Thank you, Brett. Tom, I hope that the gloves get to you soon. Oh, lost him.
Steve, I also have a question for you.
Yeah.
And it's about the paper that you just presented.
Yeah.
I don't understand the recycling of the dopamine. Is it really recycling or is it new dopamine
It's it
neuron?
it really is recycling. It really is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just um it's a it's an expensive thing to kind of synthesize new dopamine. So synthesis is happening, but there's some balance between using the stuff that so it pushes stuff out into the outside of the cell, and then there are transporters that pull it right back in.
It hasn't been used up?
No, yeah, that's it. So it's not used up because It's not a metabolite or a protein. It's not. It's a key, right? So dopamine goes out of the cell. It turns a switch, and then lets go. And then that key is floating. It's not used. It's used structurally, right? But not kind of. It's not consumed. Maybe is that a
Not
better
used
word?
up.
Would it be
It's
considered a catalyst?
yeah. It could be considered a catalyst. I mean, it's complex. Uh, yeah. A catalyst also sometimes can get consumed, right? So it's actually the enzyme can kind of keep hold of it, right? So in this case, it touches a receptor on the neighboring cell and then falls back.
Okay.
And then it can touch another receptor out there. So while it's out there, it can be opening quite a few doors, but it itself does not go inside, right?
Okay.
So then it falls back away, and then it can be transported back into the host cell,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
be re-released. Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's a very complex machine, and that the word for that machine is called the endosome. The endosome is the metabolic machinery that kind of creates it takes this chainmail, goes down onto the host membrane, grabs a piece of it, makes a sphere with some holes in it, and then pushes dopamine back into those things whoosh, to be fused and released ad infinitum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you expand on the expense, on the resources that are being used up in order to continue the dopamine cycle?
Um, yeah. So um, there's a way to do kind of energy budgets, right? To see what does it, and those budgets are typically, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, Brett, but the issue is how much ATP, bless you, Lord, how much ATP, which is the energy currency of the brain, adenosine triphosphate, that's the real energy carrier. How much of that do you need to kind of to move one vesicle or to load and move and open one vesicle? And so again, I can definitely get those numbers to you. I'm fascinated by those numbers, but what's really salient for us is that this is the most uh, again, I shouldn't it shouldn't be too hyperbolic. It's pretty close to the most expensive thing in the brain. Um, most most cells have about say 2 to 15,000 synapses. So they need to be a given cell. It has 2,000 to 15,000 downstream neighbors. It needs to be it needs to be dumping neurotransmitter at say 15,000 places on the order of maybe 20 to 30 times a second. So 15,000 compared to like 3 million. A dopamine cell has 3 million synapses, 3 million downstream neighbors. And so, and it's doing this tonically. A lot of cells are fairly quiet until they're stimulated. There aren't that many pacemaker cells in the brain. A lot of them are like us, right? We're receiving input and we respond. These dopamine cells are tonically dumping dopamine, an individual cell, at millions of places 4 times a second. So the metabolic costs are huge. And so that's one of the hypotheses about how why Parkinson's targets the dopamine cells in substantia nigra. They are on some kind of knife edge of metabolism. They are the most vulnerable to interruption because they are so energetically needy. And so kind of a small change in their metabolism, and this is largely thought to be happening through mitochondria. Mitochondria is the ATP generator for cells. So kind of any missteps of mitochondria lead to a lower energy level in the cell, and that's like a downward spiral for that cell to die. So they're working harder than practically any other cell in the brain. And of course, they don't reproduce, right? So once they're gone, they're gone. There's of course a lot of stem cell research. We I don't, but scientists know how to grow dopamine cells in a dish. Almost all the results in the paper we're looking at come from dopamine cells in a dish. How to make them viable in a transplant has not happened yet. But of course, there are lots and lots of laboratories working on that.
So you're kind of born with it. I mean,
That's a good.
or you go through adolescence, and that's that.
Um, you mean as far as Parkinson's goes, or that's?
No, as far as dopamine cells, the number that you're going to
Oh,
have, and then
gotcha. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
you're not producing them somewhere in your brain or in your marrow or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. The number of cells you are kind of fixed. Interestingly enough, though, the number of synapses you can grow new synapses and prune new
Right.
synapses. And
Done some reading on that.
yeah, which is excitement. That's how learning happens, we believe, right? And during infancy, there's a gigantic synaptogenesis. Way more synapses are grown than the child needs. And then also during adolescence, that happens one more time. So they're kind of two stages where, as an infant, you become human, right? You see how to like navigate the world, and then as an adolescent, you become socialized or acculturated, and you learn how to navigate within a culture, and that's a serious learning phase for humans. But we don't really know how to target more, how to get these dopamine cells to grow more synapses. But if that second paper I showed you today, the brain does adapt by actually um, it ends up leaving more dopamine outside the cell, so it can be a better signaler by kind of peeling back the dopamine transport. So it's leaving more dopamine out because it has sensed that there's not enough dopamine out there because there's not enough dopamine making cells. And L-DOPA
So,
also amplifies that. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, Margaret.
Oh, go ahead, Brett, you first.
well, you had mentioned the expense. You talked about ATP and how it's using a lot of ATP in your body. Was the But it's not an energy resource situation that's creating the Parkinsonian response. It's a different type of uh, uh, situation, right? I mean, if you had more ATP, you wouldn't necessarily be helping people in terms of their situation with Parkinson's. Is that true?
That's a good question. I think there are a couple of different um, a couple there's more than one pathway by which kind of Parkinsonian cells are compromised and starved. And it's still not clear whether that really is an energetic pathway through mitochondria or whether that's a hyperabundance of alpha-synuclein kind of strangling the cell, or even whether the alpha-synuclein is just there to help repair the cell because of energy damage. Um, I don't think it's as simple as just more ATP, but I do think there
Right.
are compromised mitochondria. Um,
Mm.
so again, but yeah, I don't know enough, Brett, to go any further on that. I do know that there are the different pathways for trying to understand. And Margaret, maybe you know the literature better than me and kind of the pharmacology. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what I think the basic thing, right, is the death of the dopaminergic neurons, right? And maybe part of it is has to do with ATP, but and maybe it seems like addressing the ATP might be one pathway by which you might be able to help things, but the underlying pathologic mechanism, right, is the death of the dopaminergic neurons, correct?
It is, but I
I,
guess the question is
yeah,
what's killing them, right? It's
yeah,
still
yeah.
we don't have complete evidence of that. But we do know. I mean, there's 10% of the cases are probably genetic, right? So if there mutations in one or two genes lead to misfolding of alpha-synuclein, and that seems to lead to the death of cells. Um, and then other environmental insults seem to lead to misfolding or misregulation of some of these fundamental proteins. Um, but it's also seems to be a very long process. But whether that happens, first in the gut or in the nose, and then the criminals make their way to the brainstem and find the most vulnerable place, which seems to be substantia nigra. But those are just the first cells to go. I mean, it is degenerative, so more and more cells in larger areas of the brain are attacked over time.
Yeah, and I was curious when you brought up the reversal of the DAT mechanism with use of of like methamphetamine,
Yeah.
and probably cocaine too, I would assume, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah. All the
flooding of dopamine.
cocaine's more ambiguous somehow with that. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
yeah.
Well, because I've been curious about whether or not something like a methylphenidate, which works for, which enhances dopamine in the brain prefrontal cortex for ADHD, if that would somehow also help in Parkinson's. And I
Mhm,
looked up something on that the other day, and they were actually suggesting that possibly long-term use of methylphenidate could predispose one to Parkinson's.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
But I know that that's the mechanism. This is a drug that's used to help executive function in folks who have ADHD,
mhm.
where it's thought that they have low dopamine in the prefrontal cortex and it impairs
Okay.
executive functioning. And so when you give methylphenidate, which is commonly known as Ritalin, it allows for more. It's a stimulant drug, right? But you think, why would you give a stimulant to someone who has ADHD? But there's low dopamine in the prefrontal cortex, so giving it enhances dopamine, allows that to sort of wake up that part of the brain, and then allows for more control, focus, calm, inhibition of hyperactivity. But I was wondering if, when you mentioned that about how that methamphetamine does that, I was just wondering if something like a methylphenidate really could help
Yeah,
symptomatically. And
yeah.
the other question I had in the time since last time was that I took students to the psychiatric hospital, and we were talking a lot about drug functions, and you know how you often will see so that's one of my questions. The other one, if you know, but the other one has to do with, you often see a mood disorder co-occurring with Parkinson's, um, with depression, increased risk of depression to co-occur. And there is a lone antidepressant that actually enhances dopamine in the synapse. And I'm wondering if anyone's looking at that, as most of them address serotonin and norepinephrine, but
Mhm.
Wellbutrin enhances both norepinephrine and dopamine in the synapse. It blocks reuptake of those two into the presynaptic membrane. And I
Mhm.
was wondering if anyone is looking at, or if you knew if anyone is looking at preferentially using that medication for co-occurring depression in Parkinson's compared to something like Prozac that is really looking at serotonin and
Yeah,
norepinephrine. I don't know
gotcha.
if you've
Um,
seen anything about that.
on that latter, I haven't seen anything like that. And so, I mean, in the current paper, there is mention of things like Ritalin and also just the difference in kind of dopamine trafficking in prefrontal
Uh-huh.
cortex
Yeah,
as
different
opposed to
than,
basal ganglia. And so,
yeah, yeah.
so in basal ganglia, there just seems to be, I mean, the dopamine cells in striatum are with these millions of synapses, right, are producing it really is like a bath of dopamine, and dopamine is then very promiscuous, going to many different cells, not targeting individuals, and so just kind of controlling diffusion and uptake is a very different procedure than what happens
Up here.
in prefrontal cortex, yeah,
Yeah.
where these dopamine the delivery is much more targeted.
Okay.
And but those are both good questions. I did, yeah, I have superficial understanding of both those mechanisms, um, largely because they're so confounded by so many other things that are.
Yeah, and it's been something that as I've tried to, without the training, but just to try to teach the pharmacology
Mhm.
to students about Parkinson's, but also other conditions. I felt that that's always been something that's sort of missing in my understanding is, it's not just doesn't seem like it, you know, how to it's the brain is so complex. It's not like you give something and it in one place in the brain it's working one way and somewhere else it's working some other way.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, what's the impact of that?
um, yeah, yes. Um, yeah, so the long survey paper we're reading, I mean, they do try to go back and forth between these two places, but they also though recognize that um, these are also some of the smallest synapses in the brain, and so that's
Mm,
really hard to get measurement stuff in there. And so a lot of the theory just comes from like big fat kind of insulin and adrenal cells, that are dumping large quantities of things from vesicles. Um, and so yeah, these are like early days.
yeah. And then the other question I had was the L-DOPA, so the precursor, which is this essentially the same thing we generate in a lab to make levodopa, right? in the brain, L-DOPA is not yet in the vesicle, correct?
Correct.
But once it becomes dopamine, then it is encapsulated so that the enzymes don't break it
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the L-DOPA is kind of synthesized by tyrosine hydroxylase into dopamine and then
Yeah.
inserted, pumped into the vesicle. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, it's fascinating stuff.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
Excited to do some reading.
Um,
It's
I
been
have
a
what
fire
might be
hose of information for me. I, I'm amazed.
I mean, I'm early on in our discussion of kind of neural pathways and things like that. I mean, luckily there is a Bible called the Principles of Neuroscience. Um, it's written for first year med students, which largely means high school students, right? Because it doesn't presume, a full background and a full degree in chemistry or biochemistry or physiology. Um, it helps to have all those things, but all of us are brain curious for various reasons, right? And we can kind of follow that principle of neuroscience, in through one pathway, or we followed it in through touch, and we went from mechanoreceptors up to cortex, and it's only three synapses away to get from your fingertips to cortex, and those synapses are pretty reliable. They're just kind of relays as opposed to what's happening in brain structures like basal ganglia, and so there's in many of our agendas, there is this link to principles of neuroscience. I think it's now in the sixth or seventh edition. You can buy a fourth or fifth edition. We don't need to be completely up to date on the fundamentals. And you can find those used from disgruntled, med students that are happy to unload for under $10. And so principles of neuroscience. And the lead author is Eric Kandel. He's probably now 100 years old by now, won the Nobel Prize for his work on memory.
Wow.
An amazing expositor.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I spent the last few decades in and out of that book as a fundamental, go-to place. It also has great graphics. So I mean you can largely just read it by pictures and kind of get a foothold.
Yeah.
Um,
I have what might be a simple question.
yes, Lauren.
So it seems like one of the only things that we can use to manage symptoms is exercise, movement, right? And I find that the more consistent I am with exercise, the better controlled my tremors are by
Hmm.
no increase in medication or anything else, but just using exercise.
Yeah.
But I think that I heard during our discussion today that the more you exercise, the more you use dopamine in your brain. Is that right?
Uh,
Or dopamine is
yeah, it's a good question. I could see how that might be perceived. I don't know that for a fact, right? Yeah. So I did mention that your dopamine cells are tonically firing, periodically firing, 4 times a second. But then during activity, that can be increased. But exactly which activities, I don't know. Um, yeah.
right. I
And
think Ken mentioned Jimmy Choi saying that when he
gotcha.
exercises quite a bit because he's really into that he has to take more dopamine or L-dopa,
Hmm.
right, to compensate
To
for that.
compensate. Gotcha.
And I find that if I'm sitting too long, reading or doing whatever, just sitting too long, that my twitching just gets terrible and it gets to the point that I remember
Hmm.
stand up, do some high knees up and down the hallway or do something to really elevate your heart rate. And then I'm much better. It
Hmm.
addresses the twitching and the stiffness that I get from sitting.
Gotcha.
So I was wondering if there was if I don't know, perhaps I misunderstood when Ken was talking about Jimmy Choi having to take more medication when he exercises, does extreme exercising.
Yeah. I can't say that I actually understood. 'Cause, I mean, because then Ken said it, but then he said he should watch the video, but then he kind of retracted saying the video wasn't available, and so I didn't
Yeah.
get. But that would be a natural. It would be a great follow up, Lauren, to kind of get that out onto the Facebook page, right? To have to kind
I'll
of
do that. I'll
yeah,
do that
yeah.
because it would seem to me that if you're exercising, which is increasing the use of dopamine or the release of dopamine in the brain, and then
Hmm.
you have to take dopamine through medication,
Yeah.
um, then why would you want to exercise?
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
it's stimulating that. And we all know that if you take too much medication, then you have to deal with dyskinesia and other
Right.
problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my experience is that exercise is good, but I was
Yeah.
just wondering if there was also a different outcome
A
for
counter
some
narrative.
people.
Yeah. No, but
Yeah.
I think your experience also seems to me the most what I read as well. But it's so I can't exactly explain what Ken was observing or what the ninja was observing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get that up there on the
Yeah.
site.
Cool. Cool.
And Jim, to your experience with the doctors initially and so forth, I had an interesting experience where I went to a neurologist, a movement specialist neurologist, and asked them when it was the first meeting, and I said, well, "When will I see you again?" And they said, "When you're ready for medication." And I thought, I'm just tossed out here into the world, until I want to start drugging myself with, levodopa. Come on. But then what they said in closing in that first appointment was, did I want to sign up to have my brain donated to science? And I thought, guys, that's a little bit too aggressive.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm still using it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. So I started with a different neurologist.
Well, my neurologist is not a counselor. Okay. I'm separating out the counselor from the neurologist. My neurologist is not a counselor. So he gave me bad news. Okay, you've got early Parkinson's. Okay. Now the genetic counselor who called me from the study when I sent in the saliva genetic kit,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
she called me and she said, yes, that's okay. But she was more counselor oriented. And I appreciate the fact that she's a counselor and my neurologist is not. He's a neurologist. So, okay.
Mhm.
If I'm looking for sympathy, I know where I can find it, somewhere in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. Okay. So, that's the way it is. Uh, I do feel very much on my own right now. I'm in the weeds because I just got diagnosed in October of just this past year.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wading into a fire hose of information. I've read a book called Ending Parkinson's Disease by Ray Dorsey, which Steve recommended to me. And my genetic counselor, who called me, she said, get his other book, their other book, The Parkinson's Plan, which just came out last
Right.
year.
Right.
So I'm doing as much as I can, as fast as I can, and sometimes I just have to put it aside, uh,
Yeah.
live my life. But yes, I'm very active. My tremor does not affect me as far as I was a stagehand. I worked for the San Francisco Opera and the San Francisco Ballet in the prop department, working 12-hour days for 32 years. And so I'm still active. And when the what's her name? The um, the motion disorder specialist, movement disorder specialist in
Right.
Rochester. They called the other day. I was skiing. Oh, well, and I let voicemail pick it up. But I'll have to get back to them on Monday and make an appointment because I'll be back in northern New York State by May. I spend my summers up in the Thousand Islands, where I'm from. I grew up there, and I have a bazillion questions and I'm trying to figure out how to keep a log and I have pages of okay, these are questions and okay, and then a question will get answered. So I can basically can cross that off or whatever. Anyway, I'm just discovering this whole thing
Yeah.
and wading into it.
I've been in it for 8 years now, and I'm still wading through it. There's just a lot.
Okay.
And every month, every year that goes by, there's more and more research, there's more and more understanding. And there's a lot of people all over the world that are working on trying to figure out what causes the problem.
And it turns out in